Welcome to this episode of A One Out with your host, Mark. Today I'll be talking about Dark City.
Dr. Schreiber, most unfortunate it is that we were forced to seek you out here. You know how uncomfortable we find all this moisture.
Dark City was made in 1998, stars Rufus Sewell as the main protagonist, who evokes the memory quite strongly of Ian McShane to me. They got a kind of similar look, chiseled features, and they kind of quite a presence on screen to look at. I think Rufus Sewell isn't quite as good as actor as Ian McShane, but it's not bad. Also stars Jennifer Connelly when she still looked absolutely fantastic, not skinny. It stars Keith Sutherland, William Hurt, who's a bit underused in this, and a few other people which I'll mention along the way. This is a really quite good film. I was surprised. It was on my radar, and the premise sounded like very derivative, and I sort of avoided seeing it, but it was on the TV, so I watched it, and I really enjoyed this. It evokes a lot of things. It's definitely neo-noir. It's got a gothic feel that kind of reminds you of Tim Burton's Batman, and the city's kind of the same, grimy, dark, and the whole premise is that there's never a sunrise, and no one ever seems to notice this. It's always dark. It affects other things too. The central premise is the city is kind of run by these mysterious, bald, pasty looking men called the Strangers, who all kind of dress the same, look the same, and it turns out they're kind of extraterrestrial parasitic life forms that live inside human corpses, and for some reason they all possess skinny looking, pasty, bald white dudes, and they all dress the same. They're all dressed in this weird leather outfit. They kind of these guys are channeling a cross between the monks in Equilibrium and the Cenobites. They really look like Pinhead. In fact, they look like Pinhead. There's also it's a weird film because it deals with changing reality to try and experiment with what people are thinking, and also changing memory and all sorts. It's really odd. It's really odd, but I really enjoyed it. The main strangers are Ian Richardson, who's a famous British and a very good famous British character actor. Richard O'Brien from the Rocky Horror Show, and Bruce Spence as well, who was really fantastic in Mad Max 2 as the gyro captain. He was also in Mad Max 3, but I think that was a different character. He was really good though. He's a real good screen presence, and they're running around looking like Pinhead, a cross between Pinhead and a cop. There's also Keith Sutherland here, who evokes... there's a lot of evocation of 30s in this film. It's got a very 30s look, gangster film look about it. Keith Sutherland's in it, playing this creepy doctor dude who's like the architect, as it were. In fact, bits of this film kind of remind you of The Matrix. Bits of this film kind of remind you of Inception. It predates Inception. I think it predates Matrix too. There's definitely... I'm not sure if this film influenced them, but definitely you can see it. The prototypes of some of the ideas in those films in this. In a way, it's almost the same story as the Matrix trilogy, but told better. Kinda. I liked it. It evoked Blade Runner, it evoked Equilibrium, as I say, Hellraiser. Bizarrely, it also invoked Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The 30s look and feel, the fact that these bald, weird, leather-clad men, when they went out and about among people, they wore these hats that looked just like the hat that Judge Doom wore in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Christopher Lloyd's character. Just evoke that, and also the fact Jennifer Connelly is a nightclub singer, and she sings kind of like Jessica Rabbit, and she's kind of sexy like Jessica Rabbit too. So it kind of reminds you of that. There's a lot of good stuff going for this film. I like the fact that it's also quite coherent in its story. It's got a quite an odd, bizarre universe going on here, and it's coherent within that, and I quite like that. It was kind of about psychic abilities, so it was kind of conjuring up that Brian De Palma film, Scanners, I guess, and there was a Brian De Palma one about people with psychic abilities, which I can't remember the name of, and maybe a bit of Carrie, maybe a bit of Firestarter, those sort of psychic warriors. kind of idea. In fact, it kind of reminded me of the end of Hellraiser 2. The end of this reminded me of Hellraiser 2. It's like a battle involving psychic powers. It's just this film does it better. There was also a creepy little bald kid that was kind of cool. Overall, I just really like this film. I definitely recommend it. In fact, I saw it on TV and it wasn't a great print, and I've immediately put it to the top of my list for a Blu-ray rental. I want to see what it looks like on a Blu. I think it'd be really good. On the bad side, it's Rufus. No, he was okay. He did fine in this. He did fine. There could have been other actors who might have done it a tad better, but he was fine. There were some CGI effects which were a bit shonky, which I just wasn't expecting. I don't know why. I thought the film felt more recent than it actually was. Actually, I was quite surprised to see it was made in 1998. I definitely recommend this film. I'd give it 77 out of 100, and I see on IMDb it's 7.8 out of 100. So 7.8 out of 10. So it's kind of, I'm in almost exactly the same ballpark as the average score on IMDb, and I think it's worth that score. I thought it was going to be kind of boring and through the paces, but it wasn't at all. It was interesting to see. It was dark. Just be aware this is a dark film. But I did like some of the elements in it that we later saw in The Matrix, we later saw in Inception. And I don't just mean the playing with memory, I mean the reality shifting that we saw in Inception. Kind of happened here before, a good 10 plus years before Inception. Was doing it in this film. Good film this. Recommend it. Bye.